Well, welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Macie.
Yes. Happy to be here, man.
Macie, tell me a little bit about yourself, and if you want, what do you do professionally?
So I am from Louisiana. I'm a nurse. I work in critical care, acute care type stuff. So we've been having so much fun with COVID. Let me just tell you. Yeah, I have a podcast called What Lurks in the Dark where we talk about all kinds of spooky stuff. And yeah,
I have to ask, what is the weirdest call you have ever gotten as you're a nurse? Because I just found out this is a question I need to start asking nurses, and I'm trying to get more on the podcast because I had a dude talk about he was a EMT. He got an emergency call for a stab wound, and they show up, and they're thinking a knife. The dude was stabbed with a samurai sword in the stomach, like all the way through. And they're like, we need to know this before we leave. So I'm like, have you had anything crazy like that?
So not on that level because I work in ICU. So it's not like emergency, but I have picked up a shift one time in the emergency room, keyword emergency room. And I got a call from somebody who was like, I'd like to make an appointment. I was like, sir, this is an emergency room. We don't make appointments. Well, do you guys check for chlamydia tests? Do y'all have chlamydia tests? I was like, we do. But again, it's an emergency room. He was like, well, okay, well, I'll just be there tomorrow at 8. It's like, again, sir, I don't care. Like, it's an emergency room. And like, you can't tell them, no, just go to the health department or health whatever to your primary doctor because you can't send them away. But then it's like people are crazy.
It's like, this isn't a fast food restaurant. I can't just serve you up a quick test for that. And at the second time, it's like, just go to your doctor. It's like, but this is an emergency because I'm freaking out. But that's what WebMD does. I went on to WebMD.
Never do it.
When I ate 2 boxes of Raisin Bran and it told me I had stomach cancer.
Dying.
And I freaked out. I lost my mind.
2 boxes of Raisin
I wanted fiber, and it's really good. Like, you ever just like all right. So if you like work out intensively, I've done it for so long. Like, there's one thing I was fasting for like 16 hours. So I just started eating, and then I was not getting full. And I was like, what is happening? So then I ate 2 boxes, and then next thing you know, your like stomach is like out to like, I don't even know, like 6 feet. And I'm just like hanging on. Like, I feel a big, like, water's not even going down anymore, to the point where I was like, I need to go to the bathroom, but nothing's coming out. It was too much fiber. So I was losing my mind.
That's an emergency.
Like, I had someone at work tell me my hair was thinning, and I got this haircut. That was yesterday. So I'm like, and then like I was slow losing my shit for like a little while. Like, it was like I was like over the night I was like, am I? And then the barber or the whoever was like, no, it's the way your hair is combed and you put gel in it like an idiot, and it looks like that's why you can see your scalp. I'm like, I work at 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't have time to style my hair properly. I'm sorry.
Very reactive on it.
Well, besides being overdramatic in my life, what can you tell me a little bit about your podcast?
So we just started one day, me and Jamie, of course, we were going through COVID stuff. And one day we were like, we need to hang out more. Let's start a podcast and let's talk about spooky stuff or like true crime. And I'm a huge true crime fan. And I noticed that nobody was really talking about the cases that are happening, like pretty much in not necessarily my backyard, but like, in Louisiana. So we started talking about, a lot of the serial killers like Derek Todd Lee and Sean Vincent Gillis. They were huge. Like, they totally shaped Louisiana. And I just remember whenever I was a child, how different things were. It went from like us not locking our doors at night to us, my mom wouldn't let me go down the street. So We like to talk about Louisiana things because Louisiana has like a lot of the true crime and also like mystery stuff. A lot of like culture, obviously. Like I did an episode not too long ago about Marie Laveau. So yeah, we just talk about all the spooky stuff, man.
Is it the fact that the world is getting spookier or creepier, or is it the fact that now we're just being more known to it because of the power of the internet?
I think we're just getting on to it.
Because
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever researched anything about the QAnon thing, what's going on a lot about in
I
politics.
literally just looked at that yesterday. Yeah,
They
I've
had
been.
the Bilderberg, whatever the Grove thing, where it's like the Edinburgh Grove, I think it's called something. I mentioned it before in a podcast, but it was like all these government officials that wear these like robes and stuff and burn a giant wood effigy of an owl, and it's like
Yeah.
you look at that, and they have like what looks like to be a body, but it's really sticks inside of it, but it's in the shape of a body, and they burn
Mhm.
it. How long did it take for them to stop actually burning people and turn it into sticks before they realized? Like, I always talk about, like, you ever feel like you're in a cult and you never knew, and then you start figuring out when you're older, like, oh, that was a cult. I'm like, I'm surprised a lot of people are coming out with stories like, I was in a cult, or they
Right.
did this type. Like, for me, what do you call it? Oh God, it's a shoot. What is it? This is going to kill me, and I can't even give you a description of what I'm trying to talk about. It's the one thing that oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm blanking on this. I know what the symbol looks like. It looks like a compass with like an anvil. It's like George Washington and all that had it. Oh,
I know what you're talking about, though. I just don't remember the name.
oh, okay. It's like a lot of firefighters are involved in it, surprisingly. It's really weird.
Okay, wait, never mind. Maybe I don't know what you're talking about.
So I worked with this guy, and the men of, it's like, it's not Knights of the Round Table type stuff. It's a it link. I'll think
I'd
of
be a part of that cult. I think I would join that cult. That sounds fun.
what
Knights
the
at the Round Table.
it's back goes back to King Arlesey. That turns into the
Yeah,
Knights of the Templar, and then that turned into something else. Freemasons. That's what it
Freemasons.
is.
Yeah.
That's a freaking cult.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's a
They
cult.
don't say it is though, and I'm like, hang on a second.
Everybody knows it's a cult,
You guys
except for them.
like there's just random people like going around with like symbols on their trucks, and then they have rings and stuff. I'm like, I get it. It's turned into like a very non-aggressive cult. Like it's like family game night where you have like your teams and stuff, but that's a cult. You need to be at a certain level. It's like Scientology a little bit where you have to pay to get to the next level. It's that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Question: did Epstein kill himself?
How are you going to toss that out
It's
in like the first 5 minutes of the podcast? You toss that
what
out.
I do, man. It's what I do.
No, and honestly, if people are surprised that the government would do something like that, I'm like, if you just bother to search up anything in our
Anything.
history, it's going to show you that, oh, the government has been doing this for the longest time. I'm like, it's it's the same thing. You ever heard about the Nuremberg trials?
No, actually, no.
So it's with the Nazi scientists where we forgive. Okay,
Yes,
we for
I forgot that's what it was called. Yeah,
yeah
yeah, exactly.
for
That's a little sketch.
we literally forgave them for research notes. I'm like, if you think
Yeah,
like, if we're curious about something and we want to try it out, Tuskegee experiments, whatever. If
right,
somebody already has it done, do you think like we're not going to try it out? Obviously, we might if we want to get a different outcome or something, but we're going to use their information. Then we're going to forgive those people and say you get a pass because we need your research.
right.
Like if the
We're gonna
government,
forgive all the sketchy and awful things that you've done, but it's fine. It'll benefit us.
it's made me think the reason why like killers nowadays are more like terrorists because they always do something outrageous that gets more than one person killed.
Right.
It's because it's a bigger cry for attention because we're in this
For sure.
freaking world where it's like you actually literally have to blow something up to make a mark.
Yeah, no, I agree. I Yeah.
Because
And then you have people who are like they see that like like Columbine, like all like everything like that, like they are like, oh, I see the amount of attention that they got, well, I want to have that amount of attention too. So that's what happens whenever we glorify all these mass murderers and idiots. But
how common is it down there in Louisiana to have something like that, like a serial killer?
I'd like to say it's not that common. It just happened in like the late 90s and early 2000s. There were like apparently there some reports say 3 to 5 serial killers at the same time. Yes. So there were, I can't even remember exactly how many women were killed, but it was a lot. And so, I mean, I commend the detectives and everything because they had to separate who they got. They had Derek Todd Lee and Sean Vincent Gillis were the main ones, and I know there's a third one. I just can't think of the name off the top of my head.
What did they
But I
do?
will cover him. Yeah.
What did they do? You said Derek Todd Lee?
So Derek Todd Lee, he peeped in the women's houses and he would go out and kill them. And he was like charged. I think they knew that he killed like 6 women, but there's some speculation they think that he probably killed more. And then Sean Vincent Gillis, he would go and really like go after the prostitutes. He had 8, and I think that's about exactly what he had. But there was another serial killer too at that time who was known as the prostitute killer, and he went after prostitutes also. I don't know the number, but it just so happened around that time they had so many. Now, right now, I hope there's not any, but yeah, it just was a crazy time. Like, what are the odds that you have that many? And like in Baton Rouge, like, yeah, it's a city, but we like to call it like a small town city. Like it's a big city. It's not like New Orleans, and it's not like, obviously Chicago, but it's just it's unheard of. Like, it's so weird.
My biggest question is what the hell was going on at that time in
I
that
know.
area to create that? Because honestly,
Exactly.
if every psycho killer, every documentary I've ever watched explaining the life, like the reason why they always have a psychiatrist in there is to figure out why that came from that. Like
Exactly.
the famous guy who's known as like the shoe killer. He had a
Yeah.
fascination as a little kid of hiding under clothing racks and looking at women's shoes. Like there was a
Mhm.
fascination there. And then he ended up his
Yeah.
mom or something, or stepdad called him wearing women's shoes and they beat the living crap out of him. So that's where you can see why that's what
Exactly.
the name fits. What
Yeah.
the hell was going on in
I don't know.
Louisiana?
I have no idea. So Derek Todd Lee actually, he was from a rural area closer to where I live. And I mean, I think he honestly believed that he was just born with it. I can't explain it. I mean, whenever he was a kid, I mean, obviously we're all raised with, we all go hunting and stuff. That's just that's the culture out here. And, so I think he was I think his brain was wired in some crazy ways. And he started even like peeping in his cousin's like house, like in his family members' houses, like watching them get undressed and stuff, like at a young age, like 11 to 13. Now, Sean Vincent Gillis, he was very fascinated with computers. And that was around the time like when the internet was booming, and he started getting into watching a whole shit ton of porn. And then it escalated into like porn with violence. And
That's a road I never could dive down.
that's a road that I don't think anybody should dive down. I didn't even know that was a thing until like doing all the research. But yeah, that totally explains his route because he started mixing that up. And before Ted Bundy was executed, people pick on him. They're like, oh yeah, he's just blaming all of his actions on porn. He didn't. He said it was porn with violence, and you start mixing that up, and then you start having like a mudded outlook on not only women and not only sexuality, but like you're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna axe them, and that's how you get your rocks off, and it's just insane.
There's I hate to quote Joe Rogan, but there's a Joe Rogan podcast where they had these guys who are part of
Uh-huh.
this wrongful conviction thing, and they help wrongly convicted prisoners get out, and they hear their stories, and they have to fight for these guys that were wrongfully in prison. There
Yes.
was a case they mentioned on there which makes you really think about like we need a psychology aspect behind these things, because everyone talks of they're born with evil, maybe, but
Yeah,
it's like a lot of it is emotional scarring too. Like
for
people
sure.
become cold and distant to other people's feelings when you are isolated for a very long time, and you
Right.
just start losing the grasp of what empathy is. You
Mhm.
start to look at people as like random things in like Grand Theft Auto. You can easily kill a person in a video game and not feel a thing.
Yeah.
But then you start taking that into the real world, there becomes an issue, because then you got to realize what there are emotions. That person does have feeling, thoughts, in a family. But with the wrongful conviction thing, they had a guy that just came over from Mexico. And he was illegal, and he was working for this like family out in like the South, where they were three generations right next to each other. So it was a daughter, a mom, and a grandmother all living in like trailer park homes all beside each other. And
Yeah.
he got really close with the family and helped out. And he came into the mom's house one day, and she was murdered. She was stabbed 80 something times, and the grandmother was killed too.
Mhm.
And what he does is he checks the body, and
Yeah.
then he reaches over and he hears a dog bark, and then he reaches for the murder weapon, which is a knife, and he grabs it, and he goes, who the hell's there? But he doesn't know anything about really America and the
Right.
judicial system,
Yeah.
so he's kind
Right.
of screwed at this point. He put his fingerprints on the weapon,
Yeah.
and he ended up ditching the knife and then running away. And they ended up trying to literally pursue this person. And they a lot about our judicial system, I found out through this, was really, really flawed. Like the blood spatter
Yeah.
analysis.
Yeah.
And
Have you
when a
seen the staircase?
well, like the arsonist expert, the people that come and be like, the fire started with this match.
Right.
So that only takes 48 hours to get that certification, to be able to distinguish what that is and how that happens. So me and you can both take a class for a week and then be able to do that class. Be able to, oh, this is how the fire started. We can do
Yeah.
that and then summon someone to jail, which is crazy. But the
That is
blood spatter analysis is completely just flawed in general. The fact that it should be not even admissible in court.
I agree.
So they swabbed 130 something times, and none of the blood was of anybody else. It was just of the mother. And they're like, all right, how did this happen? And when they were, apparently the mom, as she was trying to get away, she had a 3-finger blood swipe on her ass. So where someone had grabbed her by the pants and tried to pull her, yank her
Yeah.
back in. And the daughter was a cutter, and she had cut her pinky off and severed the tendon. So her fingers were like this, where it would show 3 fingers. And they were like, when did this happen? Did you have this when the night your mom was murdered? And she was like, yes. So they ended up finding out that all the evidence pointed to this daughter had killed her mother.
Wow.
And she goes, well, I'm prone to freakouts, which she has this thing where she will just snap and lose control and start getting very extremely violent, where there's video of her threatening to kill a police officer because of these outbreaks. And the evidence is clear. She's the one who did it, but they
Right.
still tried to convict the guy because they just don't want to lose. And it's
I was about to
become
say, yeah, it's like a game to them. Like once they get, which is scary, you could be at the wrong place, wrong time. And yeah, it's like they take it, it's like they're very egotistic. Like if they lose it, they feel like it's just like a punch in their, I don't know. It's stupid. It's all stupid.
it's all really, really creepy. Like if it doesn't naturally
Yeah.
come up that someone grows up like this, then it seems like the government breeds it. Which, on the factor of like, if you ever looked anything up about the Manson murders,
Yeah.
there's a book and a documentary that came out. The guy spent 20 years researching that, figured out the government was giving drugs to Charles Manson to be able to do his freaking things, to be able to kill these people. And you're like, what? Like the government's
Yeah.
involved? Like, what is the craziest thing you've learned about from doing this podcast?
Well, so with the whole Pizzagate, I actually would like to do a whole episode. I've just done a ton of deep dives, and man, it's scary. Have you done like some deep dives on it?
Honestly, I'm not too familiar with Pizzagate.
So Pizzagate is the whole thing. Man, I don't even know where to start. So they started calling it pizza because of some guy that owns a pizza restaurant or something. But basically, in
Hold
Hillary,
on.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
a guy owns a pizza restaurant. Do you understand that the names for the government programs. There's one called Starship, or no, it's Operation Starship Prime, which is where they were going to shoot a nuke into our atmosphere to try and disable a lot of the ozone stuff we were being afflicted with. Like they called it that, and they're calling this fucking Pizzagate. All right, continue.
I don't know who coined it, Pizzagate. Honestly, I have no idea.
It's a random generator. They're just hitting the button and letting it go.
The button. Yeah, like, yeah. But so basically, like, there's like a whole bunch of code words. Pizza, I think pizza is like
prostitutes.
No, I can't remember. There's a whole key. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Hot dogs, little boys. Super original. Cheese is little girls. What else was it? Pizza is like basically children or older girls or something.
Wait. So like, okay, human trafficking type stuff?
Yeah, human trafficking type stuff. But Hillary Clinton, like in a lot of her emails, like there's like stuff like, oh, I can't wait for pizza or come to the house or something, like just super sketchy stuff. And
they're code words
when you
for the
have
people.
Right. So whenever you take like the code word and you put it in her email, it's like, what in the hell? And so with the whole thing with her like deleting all of her emails and stuff, it looks super sketchy. And then it's just like a whole bunch of Hollywood like elite too. Like they're doing the whole thing with Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks apparently was a part of this, and then it's super sketchy how all of a sudden he went to Greece. And then you have Chrissy Teigen. Apparently, like they pulled up her old tweets, and it looks like she's a part of it too. But there is like, you know, they're like, oh, this is a far right, you know, conspiracy theory and stuff. So you got a lot of people who are like against it, but like I definitely want to read up on it because it's super weird. It's crazy. And then you got Ghislaine Maxwell. Ever since she's been in prison, it's like they're doing all these busts. Like they just like found like 900 kids or something in Georgia. So it's like, why? I mean, I feel like they've been doing the human trafficking searches and stuff, but it's like, why now all of a sudden that, you know, they're in, like, Ghislaine Maxwell's like in custody. Why now are we all of a sudden finding them? And then you got people who also think that, you know, of course, with all the protests and craziness and the protest is fine, but the rioting and looting and stuff is kind of distracting from like the real thing happening.
That's always what it is. There's always something else that's got to take the attention off. Like coronavirus, for instance, and the next thing you know, they'd say aliens are real, and nobody even.
What happened to that? Like, can we go back, rewind? Oh, and murder hornets. What happened to them?
This literally makes me think, because I used to work at a hotel like 2 years ago, and we had to deal a lot with these seminars we would always get, and the seminars would be about human trafficking, how to distinguish if someone is being trafficked. And I never even really paid attention, which really sucks, because now that I'm like thinking about it, like this is an actual severely big issue that is going on. And to think that like all these, how are the people in our office right now not paying for that?
Yeah, I don't think, because the way this justice system works is, you know, if you're poor, you're just screwed. If you're rich, you got it. You're fine. You'll be fine. You know, I've known a lot of poor people who have gotten drugged through the mud with this justice system. And, you know, it explains why, you know, like with Black people, like especially like how, you know, it is unfair because majority of the Black people are poor. So yeah, it's a very classist system that we live in, and that's another thing I've learned just by doing all this. Basically, if you're poor, you're screwed. So
you got to be careful though, because like I got really into like what they call conspiracy theories, but then you find out they're not conspiracy theories. They're just really shady stuff. You will go down rabbit holes you never even knew existed, to the point where like somebody starts talking like, you don't even know. Hang on a second. Did you know about the Seventh Society? And it's like, we we have fraternities. We have this, like, everybody wants to be in a group. Everybody wants to have a tribe. We consider our families our tribe. But then how far is it to go? Like, all these people that, oh, that's what it used to be. Well, now the Freemasons are this. It's like, yeah, but there's the initial thing you're still holding on to. Like, I feel like with everything going on in the world right now is that we're about to see a sliver of an actual thing that's been known as the Shadow Society for a long freaking time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird place, man. And I hate election years. I just feel like every 4 years it's always crazy.
Well, like, now everybody hates USPS because the fact they feel like they're gonna mess with your votes when you send them in. That's why, like, nobody's voting. And it's like,
Yeah.
we had this same issue in 2012 where we didn't
Right.
have a president for a while, but the world wasn't at where it's at right now. Now
Yeah.
everybody's like, holy crap, we're not gonna have a president. What are we gonna do? We need guidance in this time of trial in our life because we had this huge pandemic come through. And it's like, now everybody hates fucking Bill Gates. I'm like, why is Bill Gates injecting people with diseases and chipping devices? I don't know.
No, it's insane. And you know, as a nurse, like I'm so for vaccines. I feel like vaccines have changed our world. And you have people in like developing countries who would walk 40 miles to go get a vaccine. And we're very fortunate in America that we can just go to a doctor and just go get stuck with a vaccine. However, I think if they made me have to take the COVID vaccine, I don't know if I'd be game for it.
I said I'll wait 6 months because I Am Legend started with they got the cure for cancer.
I swear. That's why I was so scared of getting the Gardasil vaccine. I was like, I've seen I Am Legend. I know how this works. So yeah, I agree. Like,
to say vaccines are all bad is wrong. But to say that they play a different effect in everyone's life is a correct way of phrasing that. Because I've heard from comedian Ron Funches, who says he's not anti-vax, but he had his kid vaccinated. Then afterwards, like, his kid looked stoned. And eventually now he's been having a kid that's for the past 17 years that has is mentally challenged. And he said he was never the same after that vaccine. So what he says is he doesn't think that it caused it. He thinks that it progresses anything that's already there. So if it would have happened later in that child's life, it just really progressed it forward, which makes sense. I mean, like, you hear things about Wi-Fi or 5G or something. People are living next to telephone wires that are buzzing all the time. It's like, that's got to play something into your head. I mean, I've stared at my microwave that has a crack in it, just chin on the counter staring at it.
probably replace that.
I was like, there's no freaking way that didn't have radiation damage on me when I was a kid. That could not have been healthy. I don't know. I hear random clicks all day long. I have no clue. Maybe those are the voices in my head, but
that could be it.
That links back to the serial killers. Is it a voice in their head, or is it the fact that they're just completely numb to another person's emotions?
I think it's both. I think it's both. I don't know, but there is this guy. He's actual. I don't know if you've heard of it. He's a huge neuroscientist. I can't think of his name. So basically, he owns like a whole bunch of biomedical companies, and he was doing research on serial killers, and he was putting them under MRIs, watching like where their brain lit up, and you know they had like a certain, like sociopaths had like a certain brain image. So then, you know, he goes and he's working on another project with Alzheimer's, and he had, as a control, he had his family's and his own image uploaded because nobody in his family had a history of Alzheimer's. So while he's going through all the scans, he looks and he sees, oh, this one looks like a sociopath, like on the image. And he's like, maybe I got it mixed up. You know, it's not, he was like, I try to be very careful with it, but you know, it's not like it's impossible. So it's all coded. Like, it doesn't have names on it. So he tries to get them to, his text or whatever to release the name. It turns out it was his own brain image. He had the sociopathic image, presentation, and basically, you know, he comes up with the whole thing like it's a survivor gene basically. So you have these people who have this brain type, but like, oh, if you listen to like a lot of serial killers, you'll hear they were dropped on their head or they had some type of head trauma. And so it's like that trauma, once it hits like that part of the head, it can trigger them into like the whole sociopath. It's like it lies dormant. And then also he said there's like also another thing, like chemical stress. So like if you're like super stressed, like if you're like abused as a child or you're like in abusive relationships or whatever, it can also trigger it. So I feel like for some people it's there. Like it's a combination of the whole nature versus
It's like a
nurture. I feel
survivor
like,
thing of like
yeah.
brainwashing a little bit too. I mean, you got to
Uh-huh.
think we brainwash ourselves every single day. And I'm not saying, oh, TV brainwashes you. No, I'm saying like, how many times have you thought of a memory that you've made it into what you think is true, then you find out you never actually experienced that? You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember being there. Yeah, but you weren't there. You were somewhere else.
Right.
But you've built it up in your mind like, oh,
Yeah.
but then it randomly comes clear like, wow, wait, so I just believed that false memory
Right.
for the longest time. And it's like, we do that on a daily basis, which I'm so fascinated with the human mind.
Oh yeah.
Either people like to be able to forget things that happen, like people that just like force it down or just neglect it. The
Mhm.
reason why lie detector tests don't work, because you can get through those. You can
Mhm.
easily trick yourself into believing one thing and then say like, I couldn't have been there because I was at this, and that party could have never even happened, whatever excuse you use.
Yeah.
But that's why they have a psychologist in the courtroom, because when somebody pleads insane, they have to figure out if the person is actually insane. They need to
Yeah.
go, what, like there's, for instance, there's another case. One of the comedians, Tom Segura, brings it up in an episode that he had known somebody that had been, his mother was murdered, and they blamed the son, saying that it was the insurance money. The son didn't do it. So he's sitting in the courtroom. They're like, why did you kill your mother? He's like, I didn't. Why did you kill your mother? And they keep asking him over and over again. He's like, I don't feel bad because I didn't kill her.
Right.
And they thought that he was mentally insane. So he got locked away for, I think, a few years or something, like 10 years or something. Then they end up finding out that that's not what happened. It wasn't him. Okay, well, those years are lost. They can give you $1 million per year, but
Right.
after 10 years of your life being lost, you're like, well, what the fuck? Like, it's
Like what are you
money's,
gonna do?
yeah. And you hear that, and then you hear like people, psycho killers that are in there, like, why'd you kill those girls? Because I wanted to. Why'd you kill those girls? Because I wanted to. It's like, but
Right.
why did you do it though? It's like, didn't I just fucking tell you I wanted to? Like, there's documentaries I've seen on that side of it. And it's like, it's really hard to balance if what's truth and what, like I brought this up in another podcast, which I've been thinking about a lot, is
Mhm.
truth. We're so blinded by it sometimes that we go with this belief, like there are people out there that still think Bill Cosby's innocent, even though
Oh
he's admitted to the
yeah.
guilt. But they're so blinded for the love of the man that they can't see past the
Well,
truth.
yeah, they just picture the guy in the sweater that, was basically their dad on TV.
So it's
Yeah,
like
blinded by it. Yeah.
when you're blinded by the truth, that's wrong. Yes, it's good you have loyalty, but you should be so loyal to accept that he did that and try and find a way to help him get help.
Yeah,
That is real loyalty. Saying that he
for
didn't do it
sure.
or neglecting it is really doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that was a tough things we just went through.
I know. My world just has been shooketh.
Oh my
I love it. I
goodness.
love deep conversations.
I know.
Happy Labor Day, man.
God, you look at like the world, for instance, and you really, really wonder the people that, seem like they don't have any emotion. Do they really have no emotion anymore? Have they all that been burned off of them? Or
Yeah.
is it the fact that they just don't ever want to let their guard down, which is like so weird because you probably felt the same thing when I messaged you. Who is this person? Why? What do they want me on? All this type of thing. You immediately start getting defensive because you're like, what does this person want from me? What are they about? And then you do a little research and be like, okay, let's try it out. And then you have a conversation and then you realize I'm not a fucking attacker. I'm not this type of, but
Yeah, I did a full background check on you. You cleared out. I'm kidding.
I'm a Mormon. Trust me, I'm good. But like you start to, we analyze people in such ways, and then it's really crazy because then you start like, I go, I'm quiet when I work out. I like to kind of keep to myself.
Yeah.
I've worked out before my gym closed. I worked out every single day for, 7 years at this one place. And then I had to move gyms because they permanently shut down after the pandemic. Still keeping that streak going. Don't think I'm stopping that one. But when I would go in there and just get my workout done, I remember after like 4 years or 5 years, of people I would see every single day would just come up to me and just be like, "Hey man," I'm like, "Can I use this?" Like aggressively. And I'm like, "Yeah, man, go ahead, use it." And they're like, "Whoa, I didn't
That
think you."
testosterone built up.
Well, it's like, yeah, you can go. And they're like, "Oh, I didn't think you were gonna be like that. I thought you were gonna be some punk teenager." I was like, "Nah, man, my name's Robbie. It's nice to meet you." And then I walked out. You built up this narrative in your head that
Yeah.
dude is an insane like jerk, probably like doesn't hold the door open for anybody and all this thing. And they realize
Yeah.
they talk to you, and it's not like that.
That's stereotyping. That's just, yeah.
How many interactions on a daily basis have went bad because somebody has built up in their head?
Because you have a preconceived notion of what they're going to be like. Yeah. That's why I don't know. I'm very much, I don't know if you believe in this, Robbie, but I'm very much an empath and
Empath.
empathy, empath. And I go like, and I don't know if, I think it's something that kind of happened like since I was became a nurse and, in nursing school and stuff. But I don't know, like sometimes I levitate towards people and like I can just feel
Good
like,
vibes.
yeah.
I talked about it before. It's always kind of like a paranormal side, but like for a clear evidence of empathy, I have conversations with people every single day. I sense the vibe of a conversation. There are things I know where to take it if I need to take it somewhere. It's about sensing it. It's honestly, I think
that's a true talent. That's a true talent, honestly.
Everybody is empathic. I just have a little bit better than a lot of people because I think a lot of people, they put up this false personality and it gives off false readings. When we start doing that, you're reading off false imaging, and then you're not being in touch with the emotions anymore. It's honestly, you get it by just talking to people, sensing it. Oh, this person's parents just died. I shouldn't mention anything about death around them. It's that fucking clear, but it's on a deeper level.
Yeah, it is. And I just feel like, and then too, with like how everybody's so used to just texting and stuff, people don't really have full conversations anymore.
Yeah.
So that is where like the whole preconceived ideas and like stereotypes, people are just so used to being burned by most people. And so they just kind of have like their guard up and they're just in defense mode and stuff. So yeah, I get it.
I mean, you work at a building, for instance, that is filled with the most pain, the most, weak, the most sick, not employees that are weak, but the people that go there. When you're in emergency care, when you're in a hospital, you're going there because something is wrong and you're in a very sensitive situation that needs to be handled. I mean, you have to have a heart and a care for people to work there. And you see doctor shows where like, how could you just let this person die? It's like, we can't save it. You realize you get called to a lot of things.
You do actually. Yeah. So especially working in ICU, I mean, like you said, like we see the sickest of the sick. Especially with COVID, I mean, you just never know where it's going to be. You might have somebody who's doing good one day and they will literally die the next day. Like they just go to crap. COVID sucks. And so all of my coworkers, we've all really put up a huge wall. We all have like, I don't know. I just feel like we all need a lot of therapy after this because it's been rough. And even before this, like you kind of like we give like really good care, but like, and we're all smiley and stuff in the room. When you step out, like if I could have a GoPro on my head, you could see all of my coworkers the second they walk out of a room, they just go, like they just shut it down. Anytime we're in a code, you look at everybody's faces, we're like robots. Like it's just like you just get out of it's like you kind of get out of your body for a second. You just kind of are just doing things, and it like the emotion doesn't hit you. Maybe it'll hit you on your ride home, or like when you're about to go to bed, but it won't hit you there necessarily.
What's
Um,
the most emotional thing you've experienced in your time working in the hospital? Because I have an experience I want to share too.
yeah, so actually, whenever I think I was still in orientation, and there was a woman in her 30s, and she had cancer, and her children, we usually don't allow children in the ICU, especially just because everything's open and you don't want kids to see any trauma or, or catch anything, Uh, well, the kids go in the room, and I mean, she was dying, and like you see a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old like hugging their mom, and I couldn't even imagine. Like it was a lot for me as a 20, how old was I? Like maybe 22-year-old. Like I couldn't hardly take it. And you got these kids who are just like super strong, telling their mama bye, and she dies while they're all in the room, and it's just insane. And then you have you got people like that who are just young, and it took a while for me to get used to it. Like you're like, why has it happened to this person? And you get a lot of assholes. Not that they should die or anything, but you're like, why does bad things happen? Why do bad things happen to these good people? And I had a really amazing nurse who told me, and like if you're religious or not, like whatever you believe in, you can just insert it here, but it's basically God's not ready for them. God's giving them a whole bunch of chances to kind of redeem themselves. And ever since she told me that, like it just makes a whole bunch of sense to me. And whereas like the quote unquote like good people or like the young people with a family, like God's ready for them. It is what it is. But yeah, it took a lot to get used to things like that. Um, and it's still, it still takes a while to get used to because I mean, in our COVID unit, young people we have young people on ventilators and on max assist of everything with children, and it's just takes it to heart. So I mean, it's definitely, this career has definitely taught me a lot for sure. For sure.
I look at that job, like I said, I don't think it'd be something I could ever work. And even the people are like, you're good at seeing blood. I'm like, I don't think I want to see it that much. Honestly, if I scrape my knee, that's one thing. But seeing people come in from a car accident, some pretty traumatic stuff. I had a jet ski incident where I
Yeah.
was hit by a jet ski, and I was wheelchaired because they thought I had like maybe my kidneys were bleeding internally. So
Oh
they wheeled
gosh.
me next to the bathroom to be able to check my pee. And I was like, all right, well, I guess we're going to sit here until this happens. So they locked my wheelchair, and my back hurt so bad I couldn't bend down to unlock it. And
Yeah.
this happened to be, I live in a beach town, and this happened to be the day that 6 people on the beach were reported being paralyzed after being hit with a giant wave, because we had just a hurricane that just came through. So our waves were huge.
What?
And yeah, so they wheeled me next to a room, and the curtain was open, and it was a girl my age, as I am now. This happened a few
Yeah.
years ago. She was like 22 maybe,
Yeah.
and she's laying down with a neck brace on,
Uh-huh.
and it's like I hear it right over here, back left of my ear. And I like look over and I see her, and the mom and the dad are like, the dad has the hand on the mom's shoulder, and he's kind of like has his other hand on the bed, and the mom's holding the daughter's hand. And she goes, honey, we're here. And she goes, where are you? And she goes, I'm right here. I'm holding your hand. And she goes, I can't feel you. And then at that moment, they all kind of realized that she was completely paralyzed. And I fucking started crying to the
Yeah.
point, like I was like tearing up, and my dad's like running, like my dad just got a call. He just shows up at the hospital. He's coming down the hallway like how he does, like goofy like me a little bit. And he's like, hey buddy, how's it going? I'm like, dude, can you wheel me out of here? He's like, what's wrong? I'm like,
And you're like crying.
I'm
Yeah.
like, just get me out of here. And he's like, all right. And then I explained to him, he's like, wow. He's like, you know, I can never tell you until you have your own kids what it's going to be like, but you never want to see your kids in pain.
Oh
And
God, no.
it's where I start to analyze from a different perspective. I've been listening to a lot of parenting podcasts. This happened years ago, but I'm just doing it now in my life. I'll listen to things like, that's what it is. It's understanding that other perspective of what it is like that person goes through. Like everyone
Yeah.
talks about, like, I can't believe that guy just asked me what I want to do with since my grandmom's passed, what do I want to do with her belongings? It's like, think from their perspective, how
Yeah.
it's got to be like to address a person. When is the time do you address a person? Everybody goes at different rates. Hey, I know that they're not going to be alive much longer. Have you thought about what has to happen with their things?
Yeah.
Somebody has to do that.
Yeah. Dude, with COVID, we, in the beginning, especially when it was just, I mean, it's still insane, but I feel like we have a more control of it. It was literally, families aren't allowed to come in the ICU. And like you'd have these, I'd be on the phone, I'd tell them, hey, your family member is at this point, we're bad, whatever. And then literally 2 hours later they die, and then I call them back and I'm like, because everything's so rushing, like it's literally like it's unworld, like it's, I can't even put words on it. It's like almost like wartime medicine, almost like triage and stuff, especially in the beginning, like I said. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your family has died, and also can you give us a funeral home, because we can't keep your family member in this room because we got a line of people that need to come in. And it's the worst thing.
It's crazy that the fact is, like, I always talk about how the medical industry, like doctors and all this, they're completely understaffed, where patients, like, they wonder why is my doctor only in here 10 minutes and I have to wait an hour to see him? It's like, you understand that back in the day when the doctors used to have 6 patients, 4 patients, now they're having 10 and they're having 12.
Yeah.
It's like they can't create that personal relationship that they need with a patient.
Oh yeah.
Which sucks. But like, like you're saying with the fact, like, hey, we need this bed, we need this type of thing. I look at it like, we need more people involved in the industry like yourself. Like, you're doing an amazing thing, first of all, being out there. I know that's not what you came on to talk about with the podcast, but seriously, that is like a very, very tough job, and I give you a lot of credit for it.
Well, thanks, man.
And
I work with some cool people. I work with amazing people. Like I love them all.
That's why you're interested in the serial killer stuff, is because you get your faith restored in humanity with them. You're like, okay, there are people that are not all shoe killers or Ted Bundys. There's good people out here.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it's definitely taught me some stuff. But yeah, like you kind of said with being a parent, dude, the second I had my little girl, she's 2 now, but the second I had her, my entire brain chemistry just changed. Like, I went from, I can't watch a horror movie with children in it. I can't watch, like, it's insane how you just like completely understand things. Like, you're like, oh, I now understand why my mom told me this whenever I was like 12. It's just insane. And you could read all the books in parenting, and until you actually, experience it, it's crazy.
It's really hard, because, like, I think the world needs a little bit to kind of be a little open-minded to understanding another person's perspective.
Yeah.
But, I'll never truly know what that's like until I have kids. So I'm trying my hardest to figure out what that is, that other perspective. And I'm like, I feel like that's what the world kind of needs, is to breed less serial killers. If we just took the fact of understanding another person's perspective, getting in touch with that person's emotions before you focus in on your own.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because that's the whole thing that fascinates, I think, pretty much everyone with serial killers. It's like, where did you how did you get here?
Like, you chop that guy's head off for a pizza.
For a pizza.
I want to test your empathy. So I've had bad feelings about Bill Cosby before the scandal happened.
Yes.
I had bad feelings about Kevin Spacey. I had bad feelings about Ellen. I had bad feelings about TikTok. Now I want to ask you, I have said this in the podcast 200 something episodes ago, and I kind of keep mentioning it here and there. Mr. Rogers, I think there's something severely wrong with that guy.
Obviously.
And Papa John.
I'm just picturing the commercial, like, as you said.
I literally made a shirt with a guy named Adam.
Maybe he's the one in charge of Pizzagate.
I'm sending him this shirt, but I have a shirt on my site. I'm not doing a shameless plug, but it is Papa John holding a fucking pizza, and there's a head on it. And that's what the shirt is. I looked it up. The dude I don't think is a serial killer. I think he's like a severe alcoholic, or he is something, because his face has that red flustered color to it.
Yeah.
And Just saying, there's something off about the guy. I think he's a very aggressive person. He had to step down from his company because he was racist. He said something that was that he shouldn't have said. He repeated something, and then they were like, now everybody's going to think of racism and think of Papa John, so you need to step down from it so we can just keep the brand. I'm like, there's something off. If he hears this, come on my podcast and prove that you're innocent. I'm just saying.
That would be amazing, honestly. What's
like,
his real name?
It's like John.
Is it John?
I'm
okay.
not. It's something.
I didn't know if his name was John.
I don't want to say his last name because then it's going to blow up his spot. But honestly, if you just type in Papa John, it's what he goes by on Instagram.
Okay.
There's a 5-minute video of him cycling. If anybody want to watch, honestly, that's mental health.
Anyone who names their company after themselves Papa John, you got some issues.
What about they love it when they call me Big Papa?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Big Papa with that pizza. God.
All right, look, please promote the podcast, promote anything you want to promote. I appreciate you for doing the podcast.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. It was fun, man.
Promote the show.
I will.
No, I meant promote it now. Like this is the part
me?
Where this is where you say, hey, my podcast is What Lurks in the Dark, and you can find us at Bang, Bang, Bang.
I got it. Okay, so me and my friend Jamie, we have our podcast is called What Lurks in the Dark, a true crime podcast. Y'all come and listen to us. We're cool. We're fun. We're ready for fall weather so we can sit around the campfire and tell some crazy stories because spooky season is upon us. So join us. And we'll have fun. Y'all can follow us on. We have Instagram, we have a Facebook page, and we have a Gmail. It's all the same. What Lurks in the Dark podcast. So made it easy for you guys. So
I'll make sure to link it all in the description. And thanks for listening to this episode of Out of the Blanket. Stay tuned for our next episode.